Great. Well, hello everyone. Welcome. We're going to start right on time because we actually have quite a bit of stuff to get through. So welcome to the second virtual Zen Summit. In this talk, we're going to briefly give kind of welcome and an overview of how the virtual summit is going to work. And then I'm going to do kind of virtual, the weather report for the Zen system. If you can't hear me, let me know. Otherwise, I will carry on. Make this work. All right. Okay. So first of all, thank you very much to our sponsors. These are all platinum sponsors. So we have Citrix and ARM. Vates has been a platinum sponsor this year, and we have a new entrant, Exotanium. It looks like they're also trying to hire some Zen engineers. So look out for that. And looking forward to see what they have to say in their keynote later this week. So just to give you a brief intro to the Virtual Zen Summit, we'll give you a tour of the rooms. We'll talk a bit about how the talks are supposed to work, particularly if you're presenting. We'll go over some of the design sessions, and then we'll talk about some of the opportunities for socialization. So basically, we have a number of virtual rooms that all have a different name. The theme of the rooms is cities where previous physical events Zen events have been held. Several years ago, we had a Zen Summit in Budapest, so that's where the keynotes are going to be held. We've had Zen Summits in Chicago, Nanjing, and Toronto, so that's where the breakout talks are going to be held. We've had Zen hackathons in Shanghai, London, Dublin, and Munich. And so that is where the design sessions are going to be held. And as many of you know, the design sessions basically were developed as part of the Zen hackathons when they were a separate event. The hallway track is called Fairfax. The open meeting rooms are Rudmend and Santa Clara, and those are all places where OpenXT's held platform security summits and things like that. And in general, so last year we had a kind of a page that had links to all the rooms. Apparently that didn't get much use, so this year they didn't make one. There should be links, of course, from the schedule to different events. Or if you want to, you can just use they'll follow the URL pattern, linked at the bottom there. Note that it's lowercase. If you type capital T Toronto, it won't go there, but like lowercase Toronto should. And if there's any questions about what's going on, please feel free to just interrupt me as either just type it in the chat or turn on your camera and ask a question. So for the talks, the video should normally be off. If you're the audience, obviously the speaker should ideally have their video on. To give feedback to the speaker, so if you, on the left-hand side of the screen, if you go over your if you click on your own username, it should have a little menu that pops up that says set status. And using that, you can set a number of different statuses. You just raise your hand. You can say that you're happy. You can say that you're confused. And so you can see that I just turned my little thing to happy. So the presenter can kind of see that and see what's kind of going on. Obviously, comments in the chat are also a fairly low-key way to just kind of, say welcome feedback and stuff like that. Obviously, giving feedback to making sure that people that they've done a good job, make sure at the end of the talk that, unless it's a terrible talk, set your status a thumbs up or a smiley face, or say, thanks, good talk, or whatever in the chat, just so the speaker knows they did a good job. Now, the hand raise function is unfortunately not very visible, particularly if, the people you scroll off the screen. And so basically my suggestion is that if you have a question, well, you can ask it in the chat, of course. If you want to, you can, but I think another option to do, which would be to turn on your camera and wait for the speaker to call on you. Does that make sense? So like if someone's giving a talk and you turn on your camera, then the speaker can sort of finish what they're saying and then call on you and ask you a question. You can ask your question. Yes. And as always, if you're the speaker, you have control of the room. So ideally, just remind people when you start the talk, whether you want people to, ask questions as you're going along, feel free to interrupt you, or whether you prefer them to save the questions until the end. And if you are the speaker, if someone, and you haven't said that or made a request, don't feel bad about if someone raises their hand or asks a question in the chat. Don't feel bad about asking them to say their questions at the end. Right, so design sessions. So please, if you haven't already, go to the designsessions.xenproject.org and create an account. From now on, you will only be able to create an account with the validation code, and that validation code is Virtual Panda 2021. I saw at least one person who had a problem with the validation code. Is other people been able to use that properly? If you have any questions, I mean, if you have any problems, like let me know and I can try and sort it out. So basically how this is going to work, I'll give you a demonstration here. Yeah, I'll share this. Right, so once you've signed in and validated yourself, you can propose some topic that you want to talk about, and you can describe, the content. This should be using GitHub flavored Markdown, so you can kind of add stuff in there, and then basically on a regular basis. So here we go, sessions. Everybody will see the list of the topics, and they can go and read and see what the topic is supposed to be about. And then everyone expresses how much they want to attend the session. Very much, yes, a little, or none. And then we have basically a heuristic scheduler that will try to maximize happiness. So basically the scheduler will get 100 points for every, it knows you can only be in one place at one time. And so it'll get 100 points for every very, thing that you can attend, 75 points for every yes thing you can attend, 25 points for every little thing you can attend. And basically it will try and maximize the number of kind of points it can get. We will be running the schedule, and then the result will be here on the schedule page. So we will be running the schedule every day after the last talk is finished. So make sure and express your interest before then. And then we'll lock the schedule for that day. So you can see right now these are all labeled tentative, which means that the next time we run the scheduler may decide to place it somewhere else. Similarly, if you see here, like it says tentative on the side of the screen. But once it says, once we run the scheduler that day, we'll lock the slots for that day, and then this will turn green. And then you'll know that basically those will stay exactly where they are. I think that's the main thing, right? So let me stop. Stop sharing there. So basically, and talks can be restricted as to which slots they can be scheduled in. So particularly if you have a talk that is meant to go, a design session that is supposed to go after a talk, let me know, and I can make sure to say that, well, it has to happen, after this talk. Or if there's certain times of the day that you can't make it, or if there's a specific slot that you need for some reason, just email me, let me know, and I can lock it to that specific time zone. So design sessions, I think it'd be ideal if everyone that was actively involved in the discussion, even if you're kind of listening most of the time, should turn on the cameras. We were warned that having 100 cameras on wasn't necessarily going to be optimal. So just kind of as a rule of thumb, maybe try and make not more than 20 cameras on at a time. So if you're a speaker, whoever's running the design session will be made the presenter, and the presenter has an option, well, first of all, to have these tools here where you can sort of draw on the screen and do things like that. And there's also an option I'm going to turn on right now, just so you can try it out, for a shared whiteboard. So now all of you should be able to see your little cursors on the screen, and you can kind of draw things briefly. Go ahead and draw if you want, like there's 75 people drawing. And then I'm going to turn off the shared whiteboard, and then there's a little, so if when you presenter, there'll be a toolbar that you can't see at the side of the screen, right? And then there's a little trash can button that will clear all the annotations. Right. There's a shared notes area. So nominate someone is very difficult to actually be involved in the discussion and to take notes at the same time. So ideally nominate someone who's not going to be kind of, one of the most active participants in the discussion to take notes. Those shared notes should be saved after each session, but it might not be a bad idea for someone to just copy and paste after the session, just to make sure we have a backup. And then we'll send out the shared notes to you, and you can post. Someone should clean them up and then post the results to XenDevel, so everyone that couldn't attend the session knows what's going on. Go back to this one. Right, socialization menus. So we have the hallway track, which is the Fairfax kind of virtual room. And what we've done, well, actually, I'll cover that in the next slide. The IRC channel, now, this is something to note. The IRC channel, in the email, it said it was going to be on Freenode. That's actually changed recently, as of last week, more or less. It's going to be on OFTC. Okay, so you can point your, you can go to OFTC.net, the webpage, and they'll have all the information there, or you can point your IRC client at irc.oftc.net 6697. And it did me the XenSummit hashtag, and I think, yeah, at the moment I only see a handful of people there. And there's 2 meeting rooms. So basically just arrange, if you need to have a space to chat with some people, a smaller group of people away from kind of everybody else, then just choose a meeting room to go to. If there's other people there, go to one of the other rooms. The other thing we're going to do is after the scheduled talks each day, we're going to have a kind of a pub session in the Fairfax room. So in the past, we've always had, a handful of people, 8 or 10 people at various times. And there's always been some hangers on that's kind of is going on for several hours. So feel free to sort of maybe go have dinner and go have a break and then come back after half an hour or an hour. There's almost certainly going to be someone there, for, into the evening. I'll be there for a reasonable amount of time, for probably an hour or two, as long as there's other people there. So yeah. Yeah, so the next thing is socialization. During the breaks, there's an optional socialization thing, okay? So definitely for breaks, just feel free to just disappear and come back half an hour later, if you have Zoom fatigue or whatever. If you're up for it, one of the things that we did last year that worked really well was we had everyone that was in the hall, basically give people a 5-minute break or whatever, but then basically after that, if you were in the hallway track, randomly break you into groups of 5 or 6. So that you just have a chat with a smaller group of people. So then instead of having kind of a room of 20 people, it's difficult to have a conversation, whatever. But if you only have if you take those 20 people and break them into 4 groups of 5, then the conversations are much better. And you're going to meet and chat with people that you didn't meet before. So yeah. And I think that's it. So are there any questions about the virtual summit itself? If not, then so I guess one other thing is that so Deb Giles and her staff are monitoring the thing for they're running the whole session, right? So if you have any weird technical problems or whatever, you can talk to me or talk to Deb. Similarly, they have staff that are monitoring things for code of conduct violations or whatever. So hopefully things should be fine. But if anything happens or comes up, then please go ahead and contact myself or Deb or someone from her team, and they can handle the matter. So Jeppe, which links in particular did you want to look at? Okay, so let's get started with the weather report. So just what's happened this year. We had 2 Xen releases, Xen 4.14 that had Linux subdomains, lightweight fork for VM fuzzing, support for the full amount of RAM for Raspberry Pi 4, hypervisor FS. We had 4.15, which had ARM device model support and SMMU v3 support. We had Intel processor trace for improved fuzzing. We had live update. We had unified boot images. We had a lot of really cool stuff released this year, as well as things that are kind of in progress. Community-wise, things are, so I just spent a week digging through, mailing list stats and this kind of stuff, and I think things are looking very healthy for community our age and our size. So, as expected, Zuse and Citrix are kind of contending for top position for number of emails. So this is a number of emails sent to the list since the last Zen Summit until like yesterday. So, as normal, sort of Citrix and Zuse are kind of contending for the top position, but together they only make up about half of the total emails of the list. There's a big chunk of contributions from Amazon, so they have continued to do really well about coming and contributing to the project. And then, of course, we have a long tail of other, ARM and Xilinx and EPAM and even Red Hat, Microsoft, and so on. And we have a fairly big chunk, 70%, of people that aren't really easily slotted into some specific category. So we have a lot of just random people that are coming and contributing to Zen, and it's looking really good. The community call is continuing to go well. We regularly get over 20 people. Sometimes there's only 30 people on that call, just to chat about stuff that needs to be chatted about. To toss ideas out there, to get feedback, early feedback on designs, to coordinate with other people, to make sure that your patches get unblocked, and so on. So that's gone really well, and that has spun off a number of successful working groups, which I'll talk about kind of more in the future slides. GitLab CI has continued to expand. Earlier this year, we experimented a little bit with using GitLab merge requests in addition to the mailing list. And there's still some discussion on that, so that's not kind of sort of out the door. We're experimenting with new ways to kind of to be able to integrate some of this stuff with our old workflow with kind of a lot of the new tools. And of course, the HMI hypervisor virtual machine introspection subproject launched earlier this year with great fanfare, and that seems to have been doing really well. So the security team, we managed to get a number of really long-running issues off of our plate. I mean, a lot of this stuff happens and it's invisible to people who aren't on the security team until you sort of get the batch of XSAs. But there's a number of really long-running issues that we're just kind of hanging over our heads. There still are quite a few, but we managed to actually cross off a number of things off of the list, so that was really good. We have become a Cve Numbering Authority, so we no longer, now we can issue we have our own blocks of CVEs that we can just assign to issues. And we don't need to sort of wait for MITRE. We don't have to wait for MITRE to send us a thing to apply. Let's just say something. We have Roger has been added to the security team. So that's been helpful.
The only person in this conference.
There are lots of really technical things going on. So functional safety certification has been making lots of progress. We're working really closely with the Zephyr project to come up with common standards for how things are going to work. And there's going to be talks on that, updates on that later. There have been a number. It's been really interesting to see, like just from a number of different areas in the community, people saying, "Hey, we've been thinking about doing stuff on Vert.io, right?" So the OpenXT community has been doing that. The embedded community has been doing that. Vates and some of the server community have been doing that. And then out of the blue, I mean, so I didn't realize that Jürgen was working on this, but Jürgen is supposed to talk on Zuse working on Vert.io. So there's a lot of stuff, people interested in implementing Vert.io for Zen. So I'm excited to see what kind of happens with that. Amazon working on live update, which is different than live patching, right? So I'll let them explain the difference between that, but it's a kind of a new cool feature that they've been working on internally and are working on upstreaming. The RISC-V port has been making steady progress, and I saw a patch series last week that allows actually RISC-V to actually compile, at least. And there's a number of different people that are kind of in parallel working on that. That's really good. Hyperlaunch, which is basically a generalization of the DOM zeroless thing to allow you to much more flexible way of starting VMs at boot. Much more work on secure boot, and secret-free Zen, of course, is continuing to make progress. Lots of really cool things going on. One thing from the community thing, and just an update, is we're going to start up kind of push jobs. And actually a number of, sorry, hello? Okay, I got a thing saying your connection has been lost, so, okay, right.
I mean, I can still hear you, so go on.
Okay, I don't know why it interrupted me like that, but okay. So we're going to put a jobs page back, right? So I think that we don't have this alias yet because we're still just kind of talking about it. But the idea would be this: if you have a job that you want to post, email jobs@XenProject.org. Okay. And the job posting must have a link to an external web page that will have that job posting, right? So LinkedIn or whatever website that has the actual job posting on it. And then there'll be a jobs coordinator that will take those things, put it on the web page, and once a month, just go through the things, click on the link, and remove any kind of stale entries. And that should make sure that the jobs page keeps kind of fresh. So we will need a volunteer to be, or a set of volunteers to be the kind of jobs coordinator to do that. So if you were interested in that, please email me, community.manager@XenProject.org, and we will get that set up. Yeah, so there's a question here about the GitLab experiment. So I think basically we should probably set up a design session to talk about that. Yeah, I won't get into it here, but it's not anyway. Yeah, we can talk about that during design session. Okay, so the other thing, just as an update, some of you may know Freenode has had some drama. Basically, came to a head last week. I asked Ian Jackson to look into things. He looked at a number of different options, and what he recommended was we all move to uftc.net. So all the Debian stuff is hosted there. A lot of the QEMU stuff is hosted there. A lot of the Linux kernel stuff is hosted there. So a lot of our sister projects are kind of hosted there. It's been an independent thing that had for 15 or 20 years now, quite a long time. It's, a lot of our sister projects are kind of there. We work closely with Debian, we work closely with QEMU. And so nothing is nothing is official, so no one's objected basically so far on the mailing list. If you want to sort of object, if you have strong opinions about not moving to OTC, then feel free to weigh in on the mailing list. But basically, for now, it looks like we're probably going to be moving everything over to OFTC.net as soon as that's kind of official, and that's why this Summit thing has been moved there as well. Right, and I think I just wanted to end this thing with a reminder of what I think of as Xen is a really good project, and there's some really good distinctives that I think that are not matched by any other project. And there's a lot more things, but there's key things that there's lots of features, but features can kind of be sort of duplicated, but ways of doing things are actually quite different. So of course, one of the things is security, and that comes up in two different areas. So one is the security response process. So we have a very mature security response process. Anyone who runs a public cloud, anyone who has a product with Xen in it, as well as anyone who kind of runs a distro, can sign up to be notified ahead of time of any security issues. And we're pretty thorough about what we consider an issue. So a lot of things you'd only get something for like a privilege escalation or whatever, but information leaks or even kind of corner case denial of service attacks, you'll get notified of this, and you can be able to fix it before we sort of go public with it. Usually about 2 weeks later. Xen also has a number of defense in depth features. So driver domains, DM domains, and so on. And basically for these two reasons, this is why CubesOS and OpenXT are really fit in with using Xen. The other thing that we have is the microkernel design, right? So Xen itself boots in less than a second, and now we have this kind of DOM0 list gives us the ability to boot not just DOM0 but a number of other domains immediately right from the boot, and Hyperlaunch will make that even kind of more flexible with how it's done. That means that it's much easier to verify. It's possible to do like a safety certification of Xen and it's sort of easy to modify. So there's a number of kind of features like the fast VM fork and VMI and things like that, which I mean I haven't which seem to have been easier to implement in Xen and then in KVM or other sister projects. So yeah, those are things that make Xen sort of really distinctive, and I think we really need to emphasize. I mean, yeah, Xen has a lot of really cool, distinctive things about it, and we're excited to see what things are going to happen in the future with Xen. So, with that, I will once again thank all of our platinum sponsors, and I will take any questions.